5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Ernest.
And together we're L&E Explore Books. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our adventure we're on this weekend. We're going to talk about some books we recently purchased from one of our favorite bookstores. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we are currently reading or have recently finished.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited. We are currently on a little getaway this weekend in Olympia. And it is a trip that we're taking for Ernest's birthday that just happened.
Yeah. I just turned 29 years old, so I'm excited. It's a good year, student teaching and all.
Yes, it's going to be a good year. I like that. And we were laughing because we have not gone on a trip since pre-pandemic, and
Yes.
the last time we went anywhere was January. And so we really just wanted an opportunity to spend a little time together and get away, but didn't want to go anywhere too far.
Yeah.
So this was a perfect trip, and really
We like
excited.
Olympia, and there's a special shop that we went to called Browser's Bookstore.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about. But before that, you want to talk about some of the things that we bring when we travel?
Yes, so we wanted to talk about book-related things that we bring with us on our travels. So right now behind me, I'm actually using this. This is my book bean. Ernest has his book bean next to us. So this is from a company called Bookbo. Just a side note, if we talk about any companies, no one sponsors us. So this is just because we love
Yes.
Bookbo.
And if someone does one day, we will let you know, but this is sponsored by.
We will.
Boom.
And we'll have magical happy hands with that.
So
but
Bookbo.
yeah.
Free advertising.
So this book bean, what you can use it for, so if you're reading a book, you can put your arms like that, have your book just on top of the bean. That's really nice. I also really like it for, it's great as a neck pillow. It's great as behind your back. And it's something where when you look at it, honestly, Ernest was not super impressed or excited.
Yeah, I wasn't. At first, because I always used it like in bed. Lauren made it seem like it's a very bed thing, but once she got me one and I was able to see it, I saw the comfort. No longer when I read in bed, that my arms fall asleep and I'm like, ooh, and I gotta shake it and do the all that stuff. But yeah, it's actually really great.
Yeah, it's just cozy and it's nice. It has one of those covers that you can remove and wash, so I appreciate that. In addition, so Bookbo is super awesome. We also use something called a Bookbo. So what this does is if you have a book, you can just take it, put it in here, and then zip it up, and then it's safe and sound. I love to use Bookbos when I lend books to friends, so that way they can keep the book in here, because I know that that's something that can be really stressful for people when they borrow books is, oh my gosh, if I ruin this person's book, I'm gonna feel really bad about it, or I might just buy a new book and pretend like that was their book. But yeah, so I super love mine. I have quite a few Bookbos, but this is the one I brought with me here. I also like it when I go to a bookstore, when I'm packing up my books, if I'm gonna get new books, I just put my new books in here instead of using like a plastic bag at the store.
And I just love it because I find myself being a little messy, so when I bring books to school or in my backpack, I'll always just put them in there, and sometimes other things will compress them. But with Bookbo, that completely eliminates that. I can put my book in the Bookbo, lock it up, put it in my backpack, and I know my book is safe, even if things are pressing against it or going down. So it's actually been perfect for that aspect.
Yeah, something else I love to bring, I always bring a blanket, so that way I can cozy up with my Bookbo, my fuzzy blanket. I'm just ready to go. I'm like, I want to be in full comfy mode. And in addition, something else I love to bring is a book bag. And so this is actually from Browsers. I'm realizing now, I'm like, oh, it's a little wrinkly from me, not Browsers. So this is my handy dandy book bag. So I love that when I go to the bookstore itself. In addition, obviously, because we are currently in COVID, we also have masks. And so this
I don't have any fancy smancy masks.
No, but this is
cool.
this is my fancy smancy mask that one of my really awesome friends who I did my school counseling program with made me.
What I love about during the pandemic is just how fashionable we can also be with these masks. Where we have Lauren today was wearing the yellow mask that she just showed and a yellow raincoat because it was raining last night in Olympia, and she was just looking as stylish as ever, as she always does. And me, I was just wearing my alumni sweatshirt from my university and a Seahawks, well, Mariners, I said it wrong, Seattle Mariners mask, but not as
just really hyped about those teams.
The Seattle teams.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we bring with us when we go on book trips, and it just makes everything feel cozy, because I am a huge fan of, if I'm traveling, I always pick a space that has like a comfy couch as part of it, so that way I can cozy up on the couch with my blanket and my book bow and just read.
And though the pandemic has us mainly inside getting food to go, on trips we usually love having like a day where we stay in the hotel, really relax, kind of have time to just so it's always good to be able to come back. So today Lauren and I went to Browsers, that's what she showed, and we picked up a few books that we love to talk about. Yes,
we'd love to share. Do you want to share your book first?
Yeah, that's cool. The first book I bought, you might know about it because it's actually now a series on HBO about, it's called Lovecraft Country. Boom. Lovecraft Country is about Atticus Turner, a vet coming back from the war. He received a letter from his father saying that he's gone missing, and Atticus, along with his uncle George and his best friend, his childhood friend Letitia, traveled to New England in order to look for his father. They end up finding this manor owned by Samuel Braithwaite that we come to find out is actually the heir and ancestor that used to own one of Atticus's ancestors themselves. So magical realism things happen in this world that kind of Lovecrafty in a sense. This book is going to be different than the TV show, so I haven't started it yet, but I'm looking forward to actually like jumping into the book, exploring it, and hopefully getting back to you about what my thoughts are about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ernest. I'm going to have Ernest hold my book next, which is a little bit hardier, and I'm going to actually read it from the cover because it was a beautiful long title. It's When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through. And this is a Norton anthology of Native Nations poetry. And so this work is amazing. It was actually edited by a United States Poet Laureate. Joy Harjo gathered the work of more than 160 individuals representing more than 100 indigenous nations. And this is really the first time that this work has really been honored to recognize the first poets of North America. And so I really want to dive into this work. I looked through a little bit and skimmed, and I'm really excited because not only does it have the work itself, it also has information for every single author within the work. And so this just seemed like a really wonderful resource. I'm a huge poetry fan, so I am looking forward to reading this work.
Another book I picked up last time we came to Olympia was in July, and we stopped by Browsers, and there was a book, autobiography I wanted to pick up but didn't. I wanted to give it some time, really think about it, but this time I decided to grab it. The book is called The Black and the Blue. It's about Matthew Horace, who had spent a 28-year career in law enforcement, from being a police officer to a federal agent. It's basically his telling and his experience in law enforcement and situations that he dealt with. One highlight of it is 7 years into his career, he found himself face down, gun pointed to his head by a white police officer, and experiencing the tension of his own identity, dealing with also being in uniform, being a police officer, and also being out of uniform, being a black man in America. So I definitely want to read this, hear what he has to say about the experience, and things like that aren't really mentioned as much as it should be, and now are being highlighted. Because I experienced a situation where, when I was younger, where guns were pointed at me, and luckily nothing happened. I just happened to fit a description, but after that, the cops just took off, and I moved on with my life. But it's something that always stayed with me, that I can always be targeted for anything.
Yeah. The next book that I picked up is An African American Latinx History of the United States by Paul Ortiz. And so this work spans over 200 years, and is a revolutionary, politically charged narrative history. And a huge part of this book is really arguing that the global South is crucial to the development of America today. And so this work really unapologetically puts forth African American and Latinx voices, and it transforms US history into one of the working class organizing against imperialism. So I love that this work is going to draw on primary source documents, rich narratives, and that there's going to be a linkage between the struggles of African American civil rights activists fighting Jim Crow laws and of Mexican labor organizers warring against capitalism, abolitionists, and of Latin American revolutionaries. So it just looks like an incredible work, really looking at the diaspora. And I also think it's really important, particularly because it's Hispanic Heritage Month this month, from September 15th through October 15th. And often something that's forgotten is that there are many individuals who might identify as African American or African and also Latinx. And so I appreciate seeing this joining of this history, because I think that's incredibly important to recognize and note when we're thinking about our history. Now, I picked up one more book, but we both agreed that this was a book that could be really helpful to us. It's called The Home Edit Life. And so this is the second book by the Home Edit authors, which are Clea Shearer and Joanna Teplin. And so we have been watching their show on Netflix, which has been delightful and also super impressive watching this beautiful organization that occurs. And so something we really talked about is I really love the KonMari method, particularly the idea of sparking joy is really important to me. But I love this work for being able to organize the different items that we have after I've gone through some KonMari process. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I love all the labeling. I love how easy it is to find everything. And I think it's just a really aesthetically pleasing system. So that's definitely something for us, especially as we look toward having our first home, that we really want to make sure that our home is a welcoming and organized space.
And those were the books that we purchased at Browser's Books. Bookstore. Next, we're going to talk about the books that we talked about last time. We actually finished those. And the books that we're currently reading.
About the book that I talked a little bit about last week. It is called The Murmur of Bees by Sofia Segovia. And this is an incredible work. I would definitely recommend it, particularly during Hispanic Heritage Month. It is a beautiful tale that involves magical realism. It involves an unlikely protagonist, and it involves a story of family and all of the love and ties and complications that go into what does it mean to be a family. And so this work is just such an incredible example to me. And honestly, when I was reading it, so fun fact, my favorite Disney movie is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And Simonopio, who is the protagonist in this, reminds me a lot of, Quasimodo. He reminds me a lot of Quasimodo. And honestly, he is this character who people at first, when they see him, they are like he's been kissed by the devil, like he's this evil force. And what we come to find out throughout this book is that he's actually an incredibly loving and beautiful spirit, that this young boy has magical capabilities, that he has a swarm of bees that continually follow him, like communicating with him, and that with the help of the bees, he's able to completely change the world for his family. And so it's just a really incredible story of someone who often isn't portrayed as the hero, who's often portrayed as the villain, and really the kindness and the generosity within his heart, and also the fact that he has the ability to see the future, but how he communicates with other individuals is nonverbal communication. And so he has to really use his actions to be able to impact his family. And I just feel like Simonopio is such a powerful representation that every single one of us has the power to create change in our world, and that sometimes we look at people and we decide that they don't have that power or autonomy, when in reality they could be one of the most influential and powerful people. I think that that's really incredible. It also talked a little bit about what does it look like when there's an influenza, and it's just eerie again listening to this kind of rhetoric of what happens when people don't listen to experts or think that something's not going to impact them. And in reality, many people were impacted. And so it just was an incredibly powerful, but also beautiful read. The story took turns that I was not anticipating. And the ending was a really beautiful, bittersweet, but wonderful ending. So I definitely recommend the work. I gave it 5 stars, and I would love to hear, Ernest, a little bit about what you read.
So I finished up Monster. Monster, what was really good about Monster is very unexpected. It's a narration where it's written as a movie script from the main character, Steve Harmon's point of view. He also uses journal entries and like pictures to kind of highlight how the style is being presented. It's about him. I talked about last time about him being going on trial for murder of a convenience store owner and killing them. What I liked about this book is that how it really gives in a perspective of is Steve a reliable or unreliable narrator and how he presents his story. Because everything's from his point of view. He has a lot of control of how he uses things. I like the idea of the movie script because it really gives a sense of that can you see his life as a movie, and how movies sometimes especially when they're adapting biographies or other things, they choose what to keep in and what to give and keep out of people's stories. They only highlight the good qualities. And at first, when I first read this book, I thought I was reading it from Steve's point of view, like I was Steve. But as the story went on with the trial and how the defense and the prosecution led their trial, prosecution wants a guilty verdict, the defense wants a non-guilty verdict for their client. I came to realize that I wasn't Steve reading from his point of view. I was the jury. The main things I could trust besides reading his journal entries was what was being presented from the prosecution side and the defense's side of the argument. I think this is a great book by Walter Dean Myers. I think he does a good job of not making you fully believe and say like, oh, Steve is completely innocent, but kind of a big thing that I came to realize was it let me reflect on my own childhood. There's an important aspect that my grandfather and my mom and father always really put into us. It was like my grandparents told me this, my parents told me this. It was always like, you will be judged by the company you keep. I always remember this one thing where it's like, if you're hanging out with your friends go rob a store and you're with them, you might be prosecuted for just being in their company when that happened. Even though you didn't take no part in it, you're still judged by being with them. So it kind of was the thing that made me really choose who my friends were and pick my involvement. But I just think this was just a good book, and even when I read it younger, I'm glad I was able to read it today because it really highlighted things that are going on today. That in order to make these cases, the legal system has these things where the jury has this important factor of looking at the client and judging if that person is innocent or a monster, especially when it comes to a murder trial. And sometimes these clients who are being prosecuted by defense, they don't have, the wealth. They don't have nice clothes. If they are also being grouped up with people who are known criminals, like in this book, it's like there's people who are state witnesses for the prosecution saying that, yes, he was there, yes, this person took part of it, that they're a judge in that company. And the book does a good job of showing that even if a parent sees you as saying, hey, my kid was good, your parent might start getting confused and saying, maybe when I'm not around, you're not who I raised you to be. And I think that's a powerful message. It was so powerful enough that my next book actually won an award from Walter Dean Myers of how much of his writing has benefited. So I gave Monster a 5 stars. Like Lawrence and the Murmur of Bees, I greatly loved and appreciated. And, I'm excited to continue on this journey of reading some books that talk about race and these hard issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am reading Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and this book was actually given to me by my friend Ariel to read. We swap books with each other, so I'm really excited. I am about 100 pages in right now, and the premise of this is that there's this young girl named Ellie who's 15 years old. Everything is going well. She's very happy. She's excited about the future, and she disappears. And her family doesn't really have any information on this disappearance. There's not really any clues leading to this. And then 10 years later, her mother is at like a diner and she is just getting some food. And this man comes up to her and starts talking with her, and she has a connection with him. His name is Floyd. And then she meets his children, and his youngest daughter, Poppy, reminds her of her daughter Ellie, but not like just kind of reminds her of Ellie. Like she looks exactly like Ellie. She seems so much like her. And it's just this story. She starts having these unsettling feelings, and she's kind of like, am I paranoid? And is this why I'm feeling this? Or is there something more here? And he kind of gives a little bit of context about Poppy and her mother, but we're not really given any information there. So I'm really curious to see how this will continue forward. I have a couple different theories of what might happen, but I've read Lisa Jewell novels before, and typically I get like half the theory right of what I'm thinking, not the whole thing. So it's been a really good read, I think, for kind of as we're moving into like this spooky season, and as someone who likes to binge watch a lot of identification discovery, I think that this is so far a interesting and engaging and chilling read. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where this book goes, and hopefully that I really enjoy it. Ernest, what are you currently reading?
I'm reading Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. It is about Will and his brother Sean. His brother Sean was murdered. This story is written in a poetic form and basically taking down the thoughts of Will's mind as he thinks about his brother's life. I think it's important for me to kind of talk about the back and how it's kind of explained. So it really goes 60 seconds, 7 floors, 3 rules, 1 gun. The number 1 rule is crying. Don't do it no matter what. Rule number 2 is snitching. Don't do it no matter what. And number 3 is revenge. Do no matter what. And I think this book is right now, since the beginning, is going to explore those rules that's ingrained in the culture that surrounds Will, especially when his brother is murdered unjustly and nobody's willing to say anything to the police. So it's up to Will in order to either get justice for himself or to move on. But the biggest thing is, if he goes out and goes for revenge, there's an idea that he can get the wrong person, like happened to his brother, and start the cycle of revenge over and over again. And I think this book is going to deal with that. The book is written poetically, in a poetic form, which I didn't know at the time when I purchased it, but I think it's beautiful because it kind of goes with the mindset of Long Way Down, that I am reading this story in these snippets as it takes place, and it makes me feel like I'm in Will's head as he talks about little things where it's like, I gotta go to the store to get my mother items because of how sad she is, and I'm still seeing visions of my brother laying on the ground covered in blood, and I wish I could take his place, and it feels like I die that day as well. And I think it's just very powerful and beautiful in that sense, and I'm so excited to read this and talk to you guys about it next week.
So, as we look to the future at what books we're planning to read, like I said, I'm a mood reader, so this could very well go many different directions, but my plan for now is to read some more Hispanic authors in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. I also am hoping to transition into more spooky season type books, and so reading some spooky books. If you have recommendations for either of those types of books, I would love to hear them. I am always open to recommendations, and I will definitely make sure to share that you were the one who set me in that direction, if that's the case.
Yes, same. I am going to be reading some Spooktober books as well. after this. But yeah, I would love recommendations. I have some ideas of what I want to read next month for October, but I definitely would be open to read about other things as well. I think right now I'm going to do a mixture of starting with fiction and nonfiction stories, especially for October. So hopefully I do a fiction story and then I'll do a nonfiction. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, well, I think that's all we have for y'all this weekend. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please comment, let us know what your thoughts are. We would love to engage with you, and we hope that we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.